Hello and welcome back. I'm Jim O'Brien with Own Guard Solutions. And today I am going to clean my Smith & Wesson M&P M2.0 10mm. That's a mouthful, as I've said before. This is a newer firearm for me, so I've now got about 200 rounds through it, just starting to get it broken in. So I thought this would be a good time to give it a once-over, a good cleaning, a good bath. And, you know, since it is new and I've just gotten 200 rounds through it, I haven't cleaned it before now. So this is an important cleaning because it is the first one, and it's going to allow me to clean it my way with my products and then get to know the firearm a little bit better in doing so. This is the M2.0, which is the second generation of Smith & Wesson's military and police, the M&P part version. They came out with the M2.0, I believe, in 2017. The 10mm that we're seeing here, I'm just going to check it, make sure it is clear, even though I know. I'm going to lock the slide back, look down in there, no magazine, and as I'm going to say to you now and forever, make sure your weapons are clean before you, make sure your weapons are clear before you clean them. And I don't even keep my ammo or magazines in the same room when I'm working on them or cleaning them. So just to get that out of the way. But the second generation, the M2.0 of the M&P series from Smith & Wesson, I believe came out in 2017. The 10mm they put out in 2021, so still relatively new, but been out long enough now, I think, that they've probably figured it out. I really do like this gun. This is kind of a special gun for me in that it's my first Smith & Wesson and it's my first 10mm, kind of a combination. And the reason why I got a 10mm, I had not really seriously considered one until now. But the reason why I went with a 10mm is I thought this would be a good way to kill two birds with one stone when I get back to Alaska. So my last trip to Alaska, I wound up carrying two pistols with me. I carried a Ruger 454 Casull revolver, and that was going to be my bear gun or moose gun for that matter when I was out on the trails. And then I actually wound up carrying my, I believe it was my P10C, my CZ P10C for my daily personal defensive carry. And I didn't wind up carrying the revolver much when I was up there at all. So looking to the next trip, or really any trip out west where I know I'm going to have to need potentially a dual purpose, I thought, what better caliber than the 10mm? And we're not going to do a super deep dive into 10mm and the ballistics and all that. We'll save that for another time if we ever cover it. This is a cleaning focused video, but I did want to talk about why I wound up with the 10mm and how I intend to use it. So this is my out west bear moose gun and also my defensive carry. I can kind of combine everything, maybe carry a couple of different holsters, you know, one on my waist and then a chest rig when I'm out on the trails, whatever. But that's kind of the behind the scenes story of what made me get the 10mm. And then, you know, I looked at the Glock, I looked at the FN. Dennis actually has this same firearm. I hope he doesn't mind me saying that, but he had this same firearm. And honestly, the price compared to some of the others, I just liked it. I liked it the first time I took it out of the case. So they have basically, I believe they say they have 5 models in their lineup. There's really 3 in my mind. There's this one, which is the full size. It has a 4.6-inch barrel. It has, it has a 4.6-inch barrel, and they have a compact, which is a 4-inch barrel, and then they have a 5.6-inch barrel. It has a compensator and everything, and that's from their performance shop, which, as you can guess, is meant more for competition, etc. In addition to those 3, for both, at least for both the 4.6 full size and the 4-inch compact, They make a version like this that is sans without external safety lever, and then they make a version of this as well as the compact with an external safety lever. So you have your choice there, and I don't know about you, I think I say lever more often, but what do you say, lever or lever? I'm going to go with lever. So they make a version without the safety lever, and one with, which is nice for those that feel more comfortable with having their own safety. They've got, you know, they want to have for themselves. I will say that whatever you get, train with it, practice it with it so you're comfortable. You don't want to fumble and forget what you're doing if you're carrying one that has an external safety when it's time to need to go. So that's all I'm going to say about that. A super nice pistol. Again, I have about 200 rounds through it. I want to put some, I've been shooting only full metal jacket, ball ammo, target, just to get it broken in. I do plan on shooting some of my defensive ammo through it to make sure that feeds as well. But so far, so good. The only thing I really don't care for about this weapon at all is the trigger. And for those of you that have this gun, and maybe if I understand right, most any of the M&Ps and maybe the M2.0s are supposed to be better somehow. The trigger in this thing is about the nastiest, grittiest trigger that I've ever felt of any firearm, or certainly amongst the top. It has seemed to wear in, break in a little bit, and I'm hoping it with even more rounds and in time it smooths out even more, but the trigger is just nasty. A couple more things before moving on to cleaning. I love to talk about these things, hopefully it comes off that way, is the front serrations for gripping. So you have the option of rear, as they only had before, I believe, and now they've got front serrations, which it gives you some choices, makes it super nice. The grip on this thing, first of all, they have 4 different sizes of back straps for the grip, so you can really, you have some options to find what fits your hand best. And the grip, I have to say, I really love the grip on this thing, and evidently this is an improvement over the first gen. The grip on the M2.0s, if this is what they're doing to all of them, hats off to Smith & Wesson. They got that part definitely right. It's grippy, it's rough in the hand, but you know, when you shoot it, it's not so rough that it chews up your hand or anything like that. But you could tell, even if your hand got wet for whatever reason, that grip is not going to allow your hand to go anywhere. So again, hats off, the grip is great on that. So that's all I'm going to say. I could blather on and on about this thing, but we'll get started, so stand by. Okay, so here we are back again with the Smith & Wesson M&P M2.0 10mm pistol for its first good cleaning. Well, its first cleaning from me anyway. So I've cleared the weapon, just going to check again. No magazine, chamber's empty, all of that good stuff. So the first thing that we have to do after we've made sure the weapon is clear is there is a tool built into the grip of the Smith & Wesson to drop the sear deactivation lever, which we have to do in order to move the slide. So down here at the bottom of the grip is this piece that you would probably otherwise just tie a lanyard to. But in actuality, if we turn this, and I don't think it matters which way, you can turn it clockwise or counterclockwise, about 90 degrees, and extract it, and you're going to find this, it's not even a hex, it's just a metal rod on the plastic handle. And we'll talk more about that here in a minute. I'm going to put this aside. But aside from removing the tool from the bottom of the grip, what we're going to do next now is take the back strap off the grip. And the nice thing about the 2.0 series is that, and I don't know when they started this, but they actually include a total of 4 different sizes. So you're going to be able, more than likely, to find one of the 4 to match up to your hand that allows you to get your finger on the trigger and still have a good purchase on the weapon. So we're going to remove this. And of course, I have the tool out. So next I'm going to try, and unfortunately I'm going to have to point the weapon towards my direction a little bit here, but hopefully you'll forgive me. Is down inside here. I'm not sure if you can see it or not. Not the extractor, but this right here. It's if you look closely, and I don't know if you can see in the light in here or not, but it's somewhat of a yellow or green. I guess it's a yellow. They say it's a yellow green, but it looks mostly fluorescent yellow to me. You can just barely make it out. That is the sear deactivation lever. And we're going to take the tool, and what we're going to do is push down on that little finger, that little arm right there. We'll see, and you'll see it coming down, hopefully. I'll show you when I get through. Pushing it down out of the way, and all we're doing is pushing it down out of the way, right? And hopefully you can see it better down in there now that it's down. Sorry if that's not coming out, but anyway, the sear deactivation lever is what you're pushing down with the tool. Then all you're having to do is, this is your takedown lever. You're going to, and I would recommend holding the slide, you're going to push this down or clockwise, and that is going to allow you to then bring the slide forward. And you just saw there I had to kind of go back on the slide first before bringing it forward. But once you get that takedown lever pushed down clockwise, the slide comes off relatively easy. And you can see got some specks of gunpowder and dirty oil, grease, whatever Smith & Wesson puts on there in the factory in the mix, and so we're going to get that cleaned out. Here's the bottom of the slide, and believe me, and you probably have too, I've seen them a lot dirtier than that. So we're going to go ahead and take out the recoil spring on the guide rod and the barrel, and like most, you know, you're going to push up and back out on the barrel to get it out, and that's it. That's the slide. Just talking about the slide and the barrel for just a moment. The barrel of these is made out of stainless steel, and then it has Smith & Wesson's nitride coating on it, which is called Armonite. And the slide, by comparison, is actually carbon steel versus the stainless steel of the barrel. The slide is carbon steel, and it's also coated in their nitride called Armonite, which is interesting and apparently supposed to be pretty tough stuff. And of course, if you saw our last video with this weapon, I installed the Holosun HE508T green dot on this thing with the plastic mounting plate beneath it, and we'll talk more about that coming up. So now that I've got the gun disassembled, the first thing I'm going to do, and you know, if you followed in my other videos so far, not that there's that many, but the other cleaning videos, we've talked a lot about frog lube, and the first step with frog lube process is we're going to spray, I apologize for that, we're going to spray the frame down with the solvent, and we're not going to drench it, but we're certainly going to get enough on there to do its job. And again, I don't want to douse the firing pin area, either the hole there or back here where we see the end of the firing pin, but I do want to get solvent down in here to do good, to get it all the carbon and gunpowder and whatnot cleaned up out of there. So we're going to do that. Spray a little bit here on the guide rod and spring, and I'll save the barrel for last, because what I'm going to do now, I'm going to set these parts aside, makes a mess, which is why it's so nice to have a pad down for yourself. Keep the area clean and tidy as you can. What I'm going to do now while we're waiting on the solvent to go to work is I'm going to take my bore snake that I have here, and with the liquid frog lube now, and this is the way I do it, you may have a method that works better for you, or whatever CLP and solvents you're using or find that work best for you. I'm going to put a little bit of the liquid frog lube CLP here on the copper brush that's embedded in the bore snake. And then all I'm going to do is punch the bore. So I'm going to feed that metal part of the bore snake down through there. And I'm simply going to do this until it's clean. And they generally say somewhere around 10, but sometimes it's hard to know exactly how many. So I like to try to look as I go. And this is only a couple, so I'm going to do some more. And when we come back, I'll have the bore cleared out, and hopefully the solvent will have done its job, and we'll wipe that off next. Stay tuned. Be right back. Okay, so we're back. I think we've given the solvent enough time to do its thing, and just start off here with the barrel. Since we left off, I finished punching out the barrel. Again, I want to get this feed ramp wiped off really good here, or the back of the barrel in general. But suffice it to say, take my word for it, I'll try to show you here a little bit. The barrel is definitely a lot cleaner with that bore snake, or whatever you want to refer to it as. I don't know what the generic term for it is. I just call it a bore snake. There are more brands now, it seems like, than ever making similar devices to clean out your barrel. So whatever you use is fine. And if you want to stick to pads and the rod type for cleaning, more power to you. I just find that the bore snakes make short order of it and really do a thorough job in cleaning. So that's the barrel, and that's what I'm going to do here, is just spend some time wiping off all the junk that hopefully the solvent has broken down for us to make it easier to wipe off. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes here wiping off the various pieces here, the polymer slide, and quite a bit of solvent down in those grooves. Got to get all that out. I don't want to leave it wet. We're going to be wiping this thing down enough here to get all of that out, but I definitely don't want to leave it damp. Even though the frog lube is a good protector, I would not want to intentionally put the firearm back together knowing that there's still I'll say intentional moisture in there. So it'll take a little bit to get everything out, but it looks like the solvent has mostly done its job here today and done a good enough job of breaking stuff down. We're just going to have to take a few minutes here and really wipe down all these surfaces to get that stuff that's been broken down off the firearm, and then also at the same time, and equally as important, getting all this remaining liquid solvent out of there. So we're going to work on that a little bit, and we'll be back to show you the next step of getting this firearm clean and back in working condition again. Okay, so we're back, and so since the last time, I've had the opportunity to get everything, all the solvent, all the nasty stuff that the solvent helped break down, and you can see that the underside of the slide's like night and day. It may not be perfect. I don't claim to do a perfect job, but it's certainly 95+% cleaner than what it was previously. But before we move on to the next step, I thought I would talk about a couple of things here that might help you, and I should have mentioned it on at least one of these points when I was doing the Ruger the other day. So you can see down inside, on the inside of the slide, hopefully you can see, let me see, there we go, maybe a little bit better. You can see the grooves on the inside of the slide. Maybe this back one you can see better. And those are what fits over these parts on the frame to lock the slide onto the frame, or to hold the slide onto the frame, right? And so when you're using some of these super thin, super, dare I say, watery solvents, sometimes it can be hard to get all the moisture back out again, because you're typically wiping these things off long before they completely dry out. In fact, you want to wipe the solvent off ideally before it completely dries. But getting down into some of these grooves, and not just these, but these are the main ones here that I wanted to point out, can be very difficult to do with just a microfiber cloth. As good as this thing is about getting down into things and getting stuff cleaned out, it doesn't necessarily get all the wet moisture out of the grooves. So what I like to do is, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, either some bamboo chopsticks or similar, or this brass point punch with a pointy end and a flat end are your friends when it comes to getting into grooves like that. So what I might do, or what I have done quite oftentimes when I'm seeing moisture still down in the corners in that groove, is I'll simply take my chopstick or my brass pointer and I'll wrap the microfiber cloth over the end and run that down these grooves. And that really does do a good job of, and not just the frame to slide grooves, but any grooves that you have or tight spaces. That might be a trick if you didn't already do something similar when you're cleaning your guns. It works really, really well. And it might take more than once to get it all out, but that's going to go a long way towards making that job easier. The other thing that I wanted to show you real quick, and this is not necessarily a knock on this weapon, but again, this is my first time. It's not my first time completely breaking it down like this, field stripping it, but it is my first time cleaning it. And with that super runny, watery solvent, I can tell you, getting that stuff out from here is a real pain, as I learned today. And I'm not going to sit here and say that Smith & Wesson, or this particular model Smith & Wesson, has more grooves and nooks and crannies than any other firearm does, but it's definitely got its share, including these three right down in here. So again, I found myself doing a couple of things. In addition to wiping and wiping and wiping, a couple of things you might want to try is, again, either with your chopstick or with your brass pin or knitting needle, if you will. I just wrapped some microfiber around the end of it and worked those grooves. And this held true of, I worked this on a lot of these places, and I'm careful what I'm going over, but it does help. And then honestly, what I found myself doing was not with a high pressure hose or anything, but with my breath, is blowing down into some of these places, quite honestly, to blast out some of that liquid. And so, I'd say get enough solvent in here to go to work and break up all the nasty stuff you're actually trying to clean up. You can see how much cleaner it is now than it was when we started, right? Hopefully you can see that. Be sure to use enough to go to work and do its job, but don't over spray it, don't over put it in, because as I found out, it can take a little while to get all of it dried back out of there again. And this is nice, it's got ambidextrous slide release, which I didn't point out earlier. Just a couple other things to note here. With the frame, since we have it apart, I wanted to show you a couple things. The takedown lever, we had to move down and clockwise to get the slide off. We have to make sure that's back down again, and wiping this thing off, you can see it kind of flaps around really easily. You'll want to make sure that's down again before you attempt to put on the slide. So there's that. And then the other thing I wanted to show you real quick, and of course cleaning it, it's back in the original position again, but if you look right there, you'll see that yellow. I'm going to say it's yellow. They say it's yellow-green, but I'm going to go with yellow, and it looks like some of the paint's already wearing off potentially. But this is your sear deactivation lever, and it got punched back up again with me wiping down inside the magazine well and all of that good stuff. So before we begin assembly, and I'm not saying we're ready for assembly now, but before we do assembly, and I'm not even using the tool, I'm using my famous chopstick here, my infamous chopstick as it were, I'm gonna push that back down again and just make sure it's back down again. The takedown lever and the sear deactivation lever both have to be down in order to get the slide back on. So I wanted to point out those few things before we moved on. So with that, we'll move on. We're ready for the next phase, and I think since I have it in my hand already, we're just going to start with the frame, and we're moving on to the frog lube paste, which you may or may not be familiar with. This is a little unique to doing the frog lube cleaning process, but what we're going to do is we're going to slightly heat up the metal parts, and with it being a polymer frame, we want to be extra cautious with the amount of heat that we apply and how long we hold the heat in one place. So I'm going to be moving very quickly to try to get a little warmth into the metal parts inside here without holding it too long, and we're going to do that next. So with my trusty Wagner heat gun, I'm going to probably just turn it on low this time, and I'm going to move it. Again, I do not want, since it is a polymer, not that we have to worry about polymer melting too rapidly. I think its temperature, it can take temperatures much higher than this. But the point is that polymer is a plastic, and so I want to be conscientious of that. Don't have to be overly cautious. But what I am trying to do is what metal is inside the polymer frame, I want to try to get a little heat on, because that's just going to help, that is going to help melt the paste and enable it to really get on the metal better than if I were to just paint on the paste itself, which is going to help make it bond better to the metal, and that's what we're looking for, because we're looking for that wear resistance and protective coating that the frog lube paste gives us. So I think I've done that enough. It may still be not quite hot, but hopefully warm enough. So what I'm doing is taking my cheap model paintbrush here, and I'm just gonna paint it on some of the stuff that's metal in here. I don't want to overdo it, but at the same time I want to get everything coated well. So I'm going to do that. Try to get the back side here, these pieces. Anything that looks metal, and look, if you're painting plastic along the way, who cares? It doesn't hurt. Your target is metal. Your focus should be metal, anything metal, because this is the protection that we're looking for. And just getting all down in there. So this is what we're going to be doing with all the pieces. I do want to do this real quick because I want to move on to the slide before kind of doing a fast forward on you again and just moving through this. You don't have to sit here and listen to me ramble on. Just coating these metal pieces, and again, I realize a lot of plastic polymers in here. Not too worried. My goal, though, is to do as good a job as I can getting everything metal coated. So with that, I think we're there. All right, so I'm going to set that aside. I'm not going to do this entire thing. The process is the same, except with the slide. For the most part, in this case, for the most part, I'm not going to hurt this carbon steel. I typically do the underside or the inside of the slide first when I clean. It doesn't matter which way you go. I just do it that way myself. So I'm going to take the heat gun again. Got hair unraveling out of my paintbrush. Get that out of the way. I'm going to take my heat gun, likely on high this time. Again, I'm not going to hold the heat for too long in any one place. I'm just kind of swipe it back and forth. And then I'm going to paint the paste in and let it melt, and it just melts so fast, kind of like you just saw. And then when I do this top side, because I have my bright, shiny new Holosun on here, while it's a titanium housing, I'm probably not going to spend a lot of time around this area. I'm going to move the heat gun up here. Hopefully the heat will transfer back a little bit. And then either way, I'm going to paint this back in with the paste. Hopefully I can drag some of the melted paste backwards to make it a little easier to go on. But if not, I'm not worried about it. My goal is to coat it. For one thing, it's just me wanting to avoid the red dot and the lens and the red dot. But, and if you haven't seen it, go back and watch my video of installing the red dot onto this gun. This M&P 10mm comes with an optics ready cutout, and they provide you some plates to help align and get the red dot you opt to use on it mounted properly to the weapon. Unfortunately, while it does allow you to have a plate immediately out of the gate and get a sight mounted sooner than later, it is plastic. So as I use the heat gun, since we are trying to heat up the paste to make it go in easier, and it will paint on, just not quite as smoothly, you can see there. I want to be conscientious of that, dare I say, thin plastic plate underneath the red dot. Ultimately, I'll probably try to replace that with aluminum, but that is something you want to be conscious of if you opt to use frog lube and heat up the metal before you paint the frog lube paste on. So give me a few minutes to get everything painted up and we'll come back for the next step. Okay, we're back live. Okay, not live, but we have painted on, if you will, the frog lube paste after heating up the metal parts at least a bit and getting that paste painted on, and hopefully you were able to see, even with the internals of the frame, that the paste just melts, just dissolves almost immediately, touching it to any warm or hot metal. So once you get the paste on, and of course it's melted, and I've said this before a million times, the closest thing I can equate it to is kind of like car wax. Once you get it initially applied, you want to wait for it to dry. And hopefully you can see here on the top of the slide at least, and especially the barrel. The barrel's a really good example. So when I painted the barrel, it was shiny wet, and now you can see it's got this dull, mostly dull haze. And I would say it's not 100% dry, but that's okay, it's dry enough. And so now what we're going to do is start wiping off the remaining bits, buffing off the wax, so to speak. And so no, the paste is not wax. I'm just using the car wax analogy with putting it on and then giving it time to dry to that haze that we know, and that haze helps us know that it's time to wipe it off and finish it up. So I'm going to wipe off the barrel here real quick, and then I'm going to cut away again because you don't want to see me do this with all the parts, just for the sake of time and brevity of getting this video done. Our first, as you may or may not have seen, our first video, our first foray into creating a video on gun cleaning was done with my Ruger P85 Mark II, and I actually haven't finished editing it yet, but it's going to be a lengthy one, so I'm probably going to have to split it up into parts so I don't bore you guys to death. But this one I'm trying to just make edits and speed through where it makes sense in my mind, and then we can always come back later and show more detail if it's ever needed. So I'm going to put that aside. I think the barrel's pretty well off, certainly cleaner inside and out, which is what we wanted. That feed ramp's nice and clean, so I think the barrel's in good shape. Coming back to the slide real quick, as I mentioned before, since we have to, or what we're wanting to do is heat up the metal a bit to make that paste paint on really quick and smoothly. We want to be cautious anytime we're around plastic parts, and really pretty much avoid holding high heat for extended periods of time in any one area would be the general rule. or just avoiding it altogether. So that's what I did with the slide. I mostly focused on up front here. Man, that's really dried to a nice haze for the most part. I focused most of the heat up here, heated this up, and then believe it or not, between heating up the underside previously and then heating up the front, I got enough heat back here where the paste didn't necessarily melt as fast as it would have if I'd applied direct heat back here, but it actually went on really smoothly and easily, and it's still gonna get the protection it needs either way now that it's dried. So I'm gonna wipe this off, but before I did, I just wanted to point something out about, speaking of plastic, is again, Smith & Wesson, which is nice of them, includes some plates to help you get a red dot mounted sooner than later, meaning that you don't have to wait to order a separate part to then get shipped to you, however long that could take. So they include a plastic plate, at least for this Holosun 508, HE508T. One of the 7 plates that came with this particular weapon was plastic that fit this Holosun perfectly, but I did not want to spend a lot of time back here with the heat gun because I knew that plate is plastic, so you just want to be cautious of anything plastic. And just real quick, kind of as a sidebar, unrelated note, I got a comment on one of our videos around the red dot. Someone was asking where the adjustments or which adjustment was elevation and which was windage. So on the right hand side, facing down the slide, on the right hand side of the red dot, hopefully you can see that adjustment right there is for your windage. And you can see there that counterclockwise is apparently to the right, meant to be to the right. And then on top is where you can find, hopefully you can see that in the light, on top is where you find elevation, and in this case, counterclockwise, or to the, I won't even say it, counterclockwise is up for elevation. So that's how it's set up on this particular green dot. So with that, I'm gonna cut away again. I'm gonna take some time and wipe off both the frame, the slide, and the recoil spring and guide rod. And then we'll get ready to lubricate everything where Smith & Wesson recommends, and then get this thing reassembled for you guys. Stay tuned. Okay, we're back. We've taken time to go through and wipe off all the dried paste that was on, that we let dry after putting it on with the metal a little warm. And you can see it's back to its shiny, clean metal self, just with that added layer of protection on it. And the barrel, the slide, and then the frame. And so the last thing that we want to do and talk about before we reassemble this 10mm is points of lubrication. Now, Smith & Wesson calls out in their manual 8 specific lubrication points, and the points made, and I agree wholeheartedly, it's not just this weapon, but the one thing that you want to be cautious of when you're using any sort of lubricant is not to overdo it. You know, if you get a little overzealous and get a little too much on there, go ahead and wipe off the excess. But you don't want to put on too much lubricant, because too much can combine with the burned gunpowder and the carbon and start causing performance issues, malfunctions even. So, but you know, you have to cake a lot on there. So, and some firearms are finicky than others, but just putting on the right amount generally won't hurt anything. So you can see pretty much, hopefully, with the light, maybe not so well, I can see it with my naked eye pretty well. You can already see a lot of the lubrication points that Smith is calling out, because guess what? There's bare metal shining through already with just 200 rounds of wear on those parts. So I'm just going to dab a little on each of these. First one's back here. On the other side, same thing up front on these guide rails for the slide. They want you to put a little bit here, a little bit here, and for this weapon you can confirm everything I'm doing with the manual. And then, so that's about it. Wipe some of that off maybe. Again, not too much. Doesn't take a lot, but, and this liquid frog glue I find works really well regardless of the weapon. The other places that they recommend, and I agree with, and I do it with all my weapons, is here on the barrel as well as underneath. But now you can see the wear lines and whatnot on the barrel, so nothing says you can't wipe a little bit more up there. And we'll talk about this wear point here. So I know it's not in the manual, and so do what you're comfortable with. I'm not saying this is mandatory, but you know, with this wearing up here on the barrel like it is, what I like to do with a lot of my semi-automatics is turn my slide over, and then what I'll do is come up from underneath and I'll put a little dab of lubrication right there. And that's actually a pretty sharp edge of metal too. I don't think it's sharp enough to cut your finger unless you held it and rubbed it just right. But I do like to put a little lubrication right there, since I know that's likely where that rubbing point is. Because again, that barrel kind of moves and works its way in there. And then the other thing I like to do is put a little bit right there, and you can see the wear on that piece as well. So I'm not shy. I guess I'm a little bit of a rule breaker when it comes to following the strictest guidelines in the manual. But you do what works for you. I'm just showing you some of the things I like to do in addition to. Don't worry about it. If you get in other places, you can wipe it off. Just to not forget this little guy. So this is your tool to help push down the sear deactivation lever. Kind of like your spare tire when you put air in your other 4 tires or however many tires you have. Don't neglect and don't forget your spare tire in the trunk or underneath the back. So put a little lubrication on the metal piece there. It's covered in plastic primarily, but give it a little love too before you put it back together. And let's see, what else can I tell you? Oh, one thing I would like to point out too about the red dot is, you know, you can see all the grime on the lens of the red dot. I'm going to get a clean, I don't have one on me right now, but I will after I get everything reassembled. I will have a clean microfiber cloth, and I'm going to make sure I get all that residue, likely frog lube, but God knows what else is in there. I'm going to wipe off the front and the inside of that lens as best I can. So if you are running a red dot, I'm sure you won't, but don't forget your lenses on your red dot after a good scrub down. I mentioned it earlier, but I'm going to mention again, and I had this up, and of course it's right where it's supposed to be, but the takedown lever needs to be down and forward again like it was before we took the slide off. Without doing this, you can't get the slide back on. And then I'm going to show you one more time that sear deactivation lever, and I will use the tool again since it's handy, is right there, and it happens because I've been cleaning the gun, right? It happens to be up again. I need to make sure it is actually back in the down position. It doesn't go too far, but make sure it's in the down position so you can reassemble. And so with that, I'm going to take the slide. First thing I'm going to do is take my barrel, and I'm going to just reverse what I did taking it apart. I'm going to angle it down in there and push it forward. You can see how easy it slides in there. I'm going to take the recoil spring, again, backwards, reverse of what I did taking it apart. I'm going to make sure you can see this back plate, if you will, of the rod is going to fit right in that semicircular cutout, notch, groove, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to put the front end up in here. Well, I'm going to wipe off a little bit of frog lube first. Excuse me for just a minute. Apparently, I was overzealous with the frog lube paste on the guide rod and spring, and so that's something that you can decide for yourself. I do like to keep some protectant on the spring and guide rod as well. It's, I guess, not an absolute must, but just so happens that these are both metal, likely steel, and so why not throw a little protection on there where you got everything torn down anyway. So I'm going to put it back up in here where it goes and make sure that back plate gets seated down in that back little notch like I showed you. And with that, we're ready to put the slide back on the frame. So I'm going to line up these notches. Remember, inside, they're the notches on the inside. And that's another place I didn't do it this time because I think I got enough on the contact points here. But that's something else that I'll do a lot of the times, that I'll just take a ever so slight bit of lube and scrape it off my finger at different points on that groove inside the slide. And that just makes me feel better too, to, you know, make sure anything that's making contact with another piece of metal has got some lubrication. Again, I think I got enough on the frame bits not to worry about it this time, but that's just another area that you might like. And again, that's not necessarily called out, at least in this manual. So what I'm doing is I'm going to line up those notches back here with the front notches here. So as I do it, I'll try to show you. There we go, smooth as butter. My sear deactivation lever's down, my takedown lever's down, and I'm just pushing the slide all the way back. You'll see the trigger engaged. And then what I'm doing is moving the takedown lever counterclockwise back up in its position. I'm going to lock open the slide to show you that the sear deactivation lever, if you can see that down in there, hopefully, is still down. So I'm going to take my tool, and I can really do this a couple of different ways. I can do it with the tool. I'm going to bring it back up into its home location, or I can push a magazine in there, or might be able, I don't think I can get my finger in there this time on this particular gun, but I'm going to make sure it's up. So now this gun should be back together. The slide's racking good. I can lock the slide back. Got some excess lubrication, that's okay. And let's see if the trigger pulls. Yep. Reset, pull, yep, we're good. So gun's back together. Gonna give it a wipe down once more. And with the exception of the lens, and I want to keep that solar panel clean off the top of this particular, any red dot you're running with a solar panel on top, you want to make sure that gets clean with something other than your oily, lubricant soaked rags. Be a good time to clean it when you wipe off the lenses. And that is going to wrap up. Oh, forgot my, well, just a couple more things before we wrap up. So now we want to put on the back of the grip again. So it's got a little tab up front. Like I said, they got 4 different sizes of this, so you should have had time to find your match by now. I'm going to take that tab, insert it right up into there, and then I'm going to swing it down into place. You'll hear that snap. And then since I took this out at 90 degrees, I'm going to put it back in at 90 degrees and then turn it. And you can see which way is right because the round matches with the roundness of the bottom of the grip. And now we are finished with the Smith & Wesson M&P M2.0 10mm. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, be sure and like the video. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to our channel so you can be alerted when we put new videos out. We've got a lot of stuff coming here in the new year. Certainly, we hope that you've enjoyed what you've seen here. Thanks so much for watching us, and we'll see you soon.